So, in South Africa, yours and my beautiful country, the Rainbow Nation is what they call us. Well, let's examine the data about the rainbow. 55 million citizens, 76% of them Black African, 82% Black by the broad definition. Here are the facts. There are 4 large banks. 5, if you're generous. There are 7 large clothing retailers. 9 large and listed real estate investment trusts. See, we think we live in a country that's got a broad base of opportunities, but that's not really the case. And by the way, those who want you to believe different would have you believe that that's just the way the market exists. It's the way it's built. It's the way the system is supposed to be. It's not. Let's travel north of here. Go to Kenya. 44 million citizens. The Kenyan middle class is only 25% the size of our own. Yet even with that, a country with a middle class a quarter the size of ours, with 44 million people, they have 40 banks. We've got 4. They've got 18 large clothing retailers. We've got 7. And I could keep going on and on and on. So if you're a young person living today and you're living for yourself and for this moment, you're completely missing the point. You're missing the opportunity. You're missing what's around the corner. What's around the curve? Let's talk a bit about corners and curves. The main premise of my economic argument is that as young people today, our premise of relevance and resilience has to be about what we see around the corner of opportunities today. And that if you imagine as a young person, it's going to be easy, you're sorely mistaken. It's going to be hard.
For an example, one day, Comrade Mbalula attended an activity in the farm or home of Mr. Robert. And when Robert saw him, he said, Minister Mbalula, when that happened, he was the Minister of Sports. If Zuma takes out remove Pravin Gordhan, would shut down the economy of this country. We must go and tell him. And indeed, Mbalula came to tell me. I said, but what he has to do with us? I didn't know that he's a member of the ANC to decide how the ANC must deal with these matters. What is his problem? I said, go back to him to say that's his problem. But he said, we'll shut down. We'll make the rand flat on the ground. Well, fine. Indeed, they did interfere with the land, with the rand. I think there is one person who confessed not long this year that they did so. And I knew even at that time it was a deliberate move. Part of the agenda.
He was on the right side of history when it came to judging where apartheid was going. He was a great friend, I think I can say that, of Nelson Mandela, and perhaps not a great friend of one or two of his successors.
No, one of his successors.
One of his successors, exactly. This is a little bit of precision here. So, if we're talking about precision, was it...
like the other two.
Yes, yeah. So,
the country. And it's been like that for a long time, whereas with President Mbeki, obviously we were very fortunate with President Mandela. He adopted us like children, but with President Mbeki, we still have very friendly, cordial relationships, and he had an advisory board. And things started going south after he got thrown out. I mean, let's not mince words. Fight back, President Ramaphosa is running a clean government, and
within the South African and within the world market. So many people blame people that Cyril Ramaphosa himself has appointed to his cabinet for stopping him from achieving his noble goals. Well, people, I have news for you. He is at the head of everything that is happening. It was planned that way a long time ago, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma has already had a stint as the leader of the African Union. Cyril was always going to follow her up. The Zumas did not play the New World Order game. Towards the end of the party, they made clear that the agenda of the New World Order does not sit well with them. And Jacob Zuma actively opposed all the New World Order agendas, although he initiated many of those programs earlier on. The Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, those signing of those agreements with the United Nations all happened under his tenure. But when he realized what was actually going on and that he was going to get the short end of the stick, especially when Cyril Ramaphosa was clear to be the golden boy, he went sour. He tried to make as much money as he can, and he will now try and expose many of these people in his court case. Make no mistake, Jacob Zuma knows a lot. He was head of intelligence of Inkonto Wesizwe initially, so he knows all the dirty secrets on everybody. And make no mistake, the third force that he spoke of, he knew very, very well who runs this country. And he knew it was not him. He knew that he just had to comply. And some of the things he could not get away with on his conscience. Have you ever thought where all this money has gone that the supposed Guptas has stolen? Just remember, the United Kingdom has been taking money from this country since the 1820, when the first British settlers landed at Melkbos and marched into the city of Cape Town.
What do you think the BRICS Bank will do that the World Bank, IMF, and other development banks are not doing today?
Well, I'm not sure whether I could be the judge and indicate very specifically what are the banks that have been there for a long time have not been doing. But of course, we are dealing with the African leader who has been here for quite a while. There has been a concern from the African leaders that the existing banks that have been there before have not succeeded to produce an example country that was helped successfully, and it is now thriving and doing everything. There's no country who can produce, not a single one. That has tended to give concern and therefore a mixed feeling. And that's why there's been a call that there must be a reform of these global financial institutions. And of course, they are old institutions. The BRICS Bank comes from among developing countries, comes from the South. It has said from the beginning, it is there to help countries develop, to develop the developing countries. Certainly, it is going to have different approach, how it deals with struggling countries and developing countries. And that's a hope that we have, that it is going to do things differently. No country will go to the BRICS Bank and say, I need to be rescued, and find itself not being rescued but to more problems. We believe the countries that will deal with the BRICS Bank, they will be taken out of the problems and indeed to be helped so that they can stand on their own. China is not colonizing anyone. Europe held a conference to discuss how to colonize Africa, took a resolution collectively. China has not done so. They came to Africa not to do business. They came to Africa to colonize. That was their mission. China's mission is different. They are coming to do business in Africa. And I know that many people ask that question. China is doing business in Africa. I think it's going to depend on how Africa does business with China. That's the main thing. But you cannot equate the two. I think it's a wrong equation to say China is now coming to colonize Africa. Not at all. China has come to develop. It has brought better development in a short space of time than what the colonialists did in decades, if not centuries.
In which one party has 65% of the vote and all the other parties sharing the remaining 35% is not healthy. What we need is for the ANC alliance to split. They will split, I can't predict when, and to move away from ethnically based politics to value-based politics. I'm sure it's going to happen.
So Cyril Ramaphosa is just an agent of white power. He's not that important. I mean, he's disposable. White people would choose somebody that they think will advance their interests. So they're probably already thinking of somebody else to replace him because he's not doing the job very well for them. He's not convincing. He's lost credibility amongst all sectors. So I actually feel sorry for this white mainstream media because they're selling something that can't be sold, actually.
Is unacceptable. The status quo is undesirable. The status quo is unsustainable. And anyone who loves South Africa, who loves this country, will not want this status quo of poverty, of unemployment, of inequality, of violent crime to continue. Anyone who loves this country will want to see a prosperous South Africa with Africans and black people having food to eat, shelter, their kids going to school, they participating in the economy, their dignity restored. Because there's no dignity in poverty. There's no dignity in unemployment. There's no dignity in ignorance. There's no dignity in homelessness. The government has tried its best to make sure that people have access to education, to health. It's building houses, electricity, water. And people who were quite happy to see us live in squalor, people were quite happy to see us live without electricity. We went to school without electricity. People were quite happy to see us live without clean water, without access to health. Cannot tell us that when we want to transform the economy, it's because we want to loot. They looted this country for centuries. So, as far as I'm concerned, radical economic transformation is not a nice option.
What's your take on that?
Western countries have come to Africa for centuries to rob Africa of its resources. They should be admitting what they've done. Some are rich because of the resources they took from Africa. They never thought of helping Africa to develop. They subjugated Africa. They took the political power, economic power, and then made us, therefore, socially, to have no power at all. We had to fight to liberate ourselves. They were never here to help. They were here to rob. After decolonization, they continued to do so. They could no longer use political power. They influenced it indirectly, but they held on to the economic levers of these countries. They were dominating. They were benefiting. They were doing nothing to help us. They created banks that were instruments of subjugating us. They would say, for an example, to the IMF, when the IMF will say, my country's in trouble, can you help?
it will put conditions that will put you in a worse situation than before. So it was not helpful.